Salve a tutti, hello to everyone. We will do this podcast, this video in English because I have a guest from United States. I am now not in Rome as usual, but I am in Paris. You see that the settings of my room is quite different because I am in a hotel. I am in a very nice place of Paris, and but I thought today. In the meantime, I was visiting a museum. I saw in the social media something that I should remember myself, so that today is the 10th anniversary of the renunciation of Pope Benedict XVI. And of course, this renunciation make a lot of people to talk, to say many things. And there are also some people that um, have said and that says that the renunciation is not valid, and so that Pope Benedict remained the Pope until his death. That there are a lot of talks about this. So I want to commemorate this anniversary with Steven O Reilly, that I thanked for the participation. I told him like 30 minutes ago if he wanted to do this video, and he was so kind to accept. Steven O'Reilly is an author and apologist, and he wrote a book that deal exactly with this topic of the renunciation of Benedict XVI. The title is with a question, valid, the question, and then I think it's the renunciation of Benedict XVI, the
Correct.
case against Benevacantists. Yes. So
Yes.
a book that I think it would be useful for everyone that want to go a little deeper on this quite complicated topic. So I want to, of course, thank again Stephen for his participation. And I want to start in this way. I want that me and you talk about uh, the way we learn about the renunciation of Pope Benedict XVI 10 years ago, because I think it's that kind of event that I mean we remember where we were because it was really a very how to say shocking. We would say shocking event. So, Stephen, you first.
Oh, yeah. It put me on the spot. I'm trying to think where I was or what I was doing, but it certainly was a shock. I think Benedict was a great pope. It was disappointing that he resigned. Certainly, knowing that he lived another 10 years, that he could have held on. He was a great theologian. I was, like I said, very disappointed and uncertain what would happen in the next conclave after he did renounce.
Yeah, I indeed remember exactly where I was because in that time I didn't live in Rome. I was living in Macau, where I live and teach for 7 years. And but even if I was not living in Rome, I was visiting Rome, and I remember I was doing some research for one of my book in one archive, and the lady that there was only me and this very nice old lady that was the archivist, and the lady told me, oh, you know, my colleagues told me that the Pope has resigned. And I said to her, "Oh, but certainly it's not true. It's like it's a prank or something like this. Cannot I cannot believe it. That was true. I mean, it was really surreal for me." And indeed, then I go home and I saw that reality was that it was really true. He has resigned. So it was really something that I have to say surprised me on a very high level. So during these 10 years, we have this kind of weird situation with a Pope emeritus and a reigning Pope. Now, many people have questioned also the way Benedict XVI decided to to continue his own life after the resignation. For example, this title of Pope Emeritus, there are also many canonists that say, "Oh, but this is something that we never heard before, and it's something strange." I think also myself, we discuss with you during a phone conversation that is a kind of strange title because if you say Pope Emeritus, it means like he's another pope. I mean, it's a kind of strange. It's true that, for example, in a company, you can have a president emeritus, but a company, I mean, is not the papacy. It's really different. So, how you deal with this kind of issue?
Well, I guess for me, for me personally, that didn't strike me as. I mean, I understand there's a lot of things that Benedict did that to some will appear confusing. Like he still wears white. He still lived on Vatican grounds. Then the Pope of Emeritus, or the title of Emeritus. But how I looked at that is if you look at I think it was Canon 185, where it talks about for those who submit a resignation that's accepted. Of course, that does not apply that canon to the Pope per se, but it talks about how one who loses an office due to a resignation can use the honorific title emeritus. So I think there was that example there. Certainly in canon law, there was an example for Benedict in terms of bishops who resign their sees, being called bishop emeritus. Should he have gone back to cardinal? Yeah, I think he probably should have. I mean, certainly given all the controversy that's followed, it certainly would have been better if he had done something like that. But I don't see it as a problem. I can see why there might be some questions, but I think if folks really look at it, I don't think it's a problem.
But allow me to disagree slightly with you because I also read the text of several very well prepared canonists, and indeed the problem is real because we know that it's possible that we have only one pope. So even if he's emeritus, but he remain pope because he continue also to dress in white. And the in this book with Peter Sewald, no, I don't know in English it's called, I think, Last Conversation, maybe, because in Italian, yeah.
Last Testament, I think it is.
Last Testament, yeah. No, because in Italian is Ultime Conversazioni, Last Conversation, okay. But in that book he say, "Oh, I continue to use that because I have no other available." That I think is a kind of silly answer. I mean, I cannot believe that a pope cannot have other dressing. So I think it was a kind of dismissive answer that probably has not helped all this debate and controversy. And also he continued to be called Pope Benedict XVI. I mean that this is his pontifical name. So I don't know. I think that he didn't probably think it deeply that what may be the consequences of continuing in that kind of way. So this is what I think.
I think no, I agree. I mean, that answer about why he's still wearing white, and he said why there was no black cassocks around for him to wear. I mean, that's a silly answer. I mean, I have
Exactly.
there's no good explanation for that. Maybe he was just joking or what, or just being coy. But I think certainly with all the things that you mentioned, the use of the title, Bishop Pope Emeritus, and wearing the white, and some of the external signs of what he was doing, he should have, I think, had a broader consultation with some of his cardinals, his close confidants. Maybe Cardinal Brammuller certainly complained about the use of the title Pope Emeritus in some articles. I think in German, they had a private conversation back and forth by letter, Cardinal Brammuller and Pope Emeritus Benedict, over the use of Pope Emeritus. So I think clearly he should have, once he decided to resign, he really should have, I think, consulted with more cardinals about what would be an appropriate, life for him afterwards, since he was really setting a precedent for the modern age.
But not only that, there is also this thing of the blessing of the statue of the Saint Michael the Archangel in the Vatican garden, where they bless the statue, and Pope Francis blessed the statue, but he invited also Pope Benedict, and then on the statue there is the inscription. Francis, reigning Pope, Sommo Pontefice. I don't know in English.
Supreme Pontiff. Supreme
What is?
Supreme Pontiff.
Sovereign Pontiff. Okay, and then also it was Benedict Sovereign Pontiff or something like this. So I think that the way they deal with this kind of issue only add to the confusion and not to the clarity of something that in any case is not unprecedented, as we know, but it is not so frequent in the history of the papacy. So this is, of course, we are going in a little to talk about this issue of the Behevacantists, but we have to say that they have contributed a lot in making other people to create theories and complotism, whatever. So, what do you think?
I agree with that. I think that it would have been helpful too, probably early on, if he was more direct in some of his answers at some of the questions that the Benny Papists, as I call them, had. If he just, instead of kind of being dismissive, just saying, "Oh, it's absurd," which I think it is absurd, but he should have been more pastoral and realize there's people out there in the world who are confused by this, and he should have been more forthcoming. And I think Ganswein should have counseled him to maybe write a document that kind of answered some of the questions that the Benny Papists had, to put their minds at ease. And it's unfortunate now that he's passed away, and that hasn't happened.
Yes, I want just to remind the people that is listening and that will listen to this video that go streaming in YouTube and also in Facebook, in LinkedIn, and in Twitter. That of course you can read the book of Steven Veiled, the one that we mentioned before, and that is also in the description of this video. And also you to understand better the situation of the church, you can also read the book I wrote with Aldo Maria Valli that is in the corner of this video, and that is called Uprooted. approved, is available in Amazon, in Kindle, in paperback version, and also is available in other book store, digital bookstore. So now I want to ask, I want to comment on Stephen about the topic of the what we used to call Behevacantists, because now, or Bene Papi, however you want to call it. When the resignation happened of Benedict XVI, I have to tell you personally, I never imagined that there will be someone that so consistently will use his resignation to, to build a theory about the not validity, and then because as we know, this phenomenon is not so marginal. This is why I think you write the book, and this is why I also I am also researching about this. So, do, can you imagine that something like this could happen?
I never imagined it would. It seemed pretty straightforward to me. But I think what happened was, as time progressed, there might have been early on, there might have been, I figure all the history of it now, but there might have been someone who commented at the time about the choice of Latin and all that. But there was no Benny Papist movement saying that the resignation wasn't valid. What, in my view, what happened is you had Amoris Laetitia came out in April 2016, which was, frankly, for a lot of Catholics, kind of a shocking document, depending on how you interpreted it. And then you had some cardinals who try to get to what the true interpretation was, or hopefully an orthodox interpretation of it, the dubia cardinals. And Francis just ignored them, as we all know now. It's been like 5, 6, 7 years since the dubia were written. So I think that, and then some of these other things started kind of steamrolling that the controversies that kind of arose with Francis, and questions about appointments, things he said, people that he would greet. Was it Emma Bongino? Is it the big Italian abortionist that he embraced, I think, at the Vatican? And
Emma Bonino.
Bonino. I'm sorry.
No,
so those types of things shocked a lot of people. I mean, quite naturally. So people started looking and kind of latching on to this, some of the questions about the Latin and about the wearing of the white, the use of the title, as you pointed out. And that's how I think the theory started developing around that. I think around 2016 and then 2017, people looked at the Declaratio and the last audience were really the launching pad for the theory of Benny Papism.
Yeah, and also I want to be very careful with something, and that I think also you will agree with me. We have to be very careful in not mixing the our opinion on Pope Francis and the issue of the resignation of Pope Benedict, because these are two separate things. It's not because some people think very badly about Pope Francis that this validate the theory that the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI was not valid, because it's not like this. I mean, we know in the history now, beside what is our personal opinion on Pope Francis, in history there were several bad popes, but still they were popes. I mean, it's not that because you are not acting well, you are no more pope, or at least you are going in full heresy. That, of course, is something that people also is saying about Pope Francis. But we really should we should face the issue of the resignation really in a kind of technical way, leaving aside Pope Francis. I mean, the all the discussion about this single mafia, or all these things are another problem. I
I
don't know.
I agree. I think you stated it quite well that if Benedict was still Pope, that question has to stand or fall on its own evidence, on its own merits, and that's how I looked at it. I mean, I am sympathetic to a lot of the things that many papists say about Francis. I mean,
Of
we
course,
all,
of course.
Catholics are confused about a lot of things about
Yeah,
Francis, understandably. And I mean, I probably agree with maybe 80, 90%, maybe 100% of a lot of about what a lot of the many papists say about Francis. However, you still have to look at the evidence for the resignation kind of distinctly from that, because Francis is bad doesn't make Benedict Pope. So you have to really
yeah,
look closely
exactly. I agree perfectly with this kind of vision. And also, to tell you honestly, you know that some of the people that are involved in a kind of high level in this kind of movement, we call it movement. So to understand, you know, that I know them, and I am also a friend with them, and still I want to remain friend with them, even if I don't agree with the theories that they are presenting. But what I'm surprised. This is why I start to take an interest, and hopefully this interest will become soon a book. What I am surprised is that this movement, at least in Italy, involve not a little group of people, but I mean, of course, it's not a million, but it's still, I mean, thousands of people that is
yeah.
still. So I don't know in the United States if it's the same or what. Also because you in the United States the Catholicism in a certain way is quite complicated, no? Because there are many of these alternative groups, groups that they elect popes. Or things like Pope Michael. Indeed, Pope Michael was like a very solitary thing, being in a certain way. But I mean, it's more complicated than in Italy. I mean, in Italy, I can say that it's more homogeneous, the thing. So, but I want to ask you. So, what is the impact of this kind of ideas in United States?
Well, I think well, going back, I think, like I said, it began, in my view, in earnest in mid 2016, following Amoris Laetitia into 2017. And it seemed to have gained, well, it's hard to judge how large it is in terms of numbers. That's very difficult. Certainly, in terms of social media impact, it seems to have gained some momentum over the last couple of years, when you had the Pachamama and things like that. Just again, just kind of feed the notion there's something wrong with Francis, and you have the conclusion, oh, therefore this Benedict is still Pope. So that kind of fed that. But it's difficult. It's difficult to gauge. I mean, it is prominent on like Twitter and social media. Seeing it on blogs, podcasts. There's
Yeah,
some.
one thing that surprised me is that, for example, Patrick Coffin, that is a quite known YouTuber, a Catholic YouTuber, he also agree with this kind of idea. So that really surprised me.
It surprised me too. I mean, his background, I think, was with Catholic Answers, which is a very highly respected Catholic apologetics group out in San Diego. I think it is. Yeah, so that surprised me too. He was flirting with it for a while. In terms, I think he had some shows where he talked about the Conclave, problems with the St. Gallen Mafia. I think he had Cardinal Burke on and interviewed him about the St. Gallen Mafia and the Conclave. But a couple of years ago, I think he had on Dr. Edmund Mazza, who just wrote a book on Benny Papism, and he interviewed him quite favorably. But Dr. Mazza's view is that Benedict resigned in error. But Patrick Coffin, though, he has kind of migrated to the position, which is similar to Andrea Cianci's theory, kind of a self-impedus, I guess you would call it. You know, the kind of the Plan B theory that.
The Plan B.
Yeah. So yeah, so that is surprising, but he doesn't focus on that solely. I mean, he has a lot of, you know, great guests on his show. He talks about other topics, but he has had some video episodes where it's devoted to Benny Papism, and I think he has come out and said that Benedict or Francis is an anti-pope. So he's kind of laid it out there.
Yeah, and also I think that to deal with this kind of topic, we have to be very careful in not falling into emotionalism. I mean, I know that, of course, me and you, we have many things to say about the situation of the church in our time, but that's a kind of different thing to say that Benedict never resigned and that he remained Pope. I mean, it's a kind of really. It is not a no-brainer. I mean, they are different things. This I want really to repeat. Now we are going to the conclusion of this video that I want to make to commemorate the 10 years of the resignation of Pope Benedict. And I just want to, with you, because I know you talk about that, we talk in WhatsApp also about that. Recently, that there was the kind of weird turn of the conclave that was gathered by brother Bugnolo, and that at the end elected Pope Francis Bergoglio. That was very strange because it's like they were. It's like to make an example that is good for you. It's like that the Democrats in your country have the possibility to elect a new president, and they are only the Democrat that can elect and not the Republican, and they elect Donald Trump. I mean, it would be very strange because they talk badly of him every day of his presidency. So the same is for Francis. I mean, these people criticize Francis very strongly every day, and then now when they have a choice, I put it in quote choice, of course. What they do. I was expecting they elect someone else. I mean, to make also a little more attractive the thing. So, what do you think?
Well, on my blog, Roma the Q2S, I mean, I started following specifically what Brother Bagnola was saying back in December about there will be a pope in 30 days and all that. So I started writing a series of articles, kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of humorous articles that kind of followed his adventures over the last couple of months. Over time, I actually kind of thought that Brother Bagnola was expecting to be elected pope himself. So I was actually quite surprised to see they elected Francis. But it's all very sad because it's just a metaphor that for the Benny Papists, the Behevacantists, they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. And how do they get out of it? They had, you're probably aware that they had this declaration, a declaratio of their own, I think last year. I think Brother Bagnola published it on his site too, where they have said that they will not accept any conclave that has any cardinals appointed by Francis. So you have those folks. And I think actually Patrick Coffin had a tweet saying that we needed to have a conclave with only Benedict's cardinals. Well, that's not going to happen. So what do you do? So then you have others who might say, well, we'll have a conclave, okay, with Francis's cardinals in how many more years or months that is. But the problem then is, well, what if they elect a pope that confirms the resignation of Benedict? Are they going to say, oh, he's an anti-pope now because he's a heretic because he recognizes Francis Pope? So they've backed themselves into a corner. I don't see how they get out of it without.
But Stephen, we also need to be intellectually honest, because of course we want intellectual honesty from others, but also we have to this this thing of Brother Bugnolo indeed was not representing all the Benevacantists movement, because as you know, some leading figures of this movement, at least in Italy, like Alessandro Minutella or Andrea Cionci that you mentioned before, they disagree completely with this kind of.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not meaning to suggest that the Benny Papists were behind Vignolo. I mean, they clearly were not. I think he had 4 people at his conclave, I think. So he clearly did not have.
Know. How many people, you know?
My understanding, there were 4 people there.
4 people. Why?
4 people at the airport hotel for his conclave. That's my understanding, at least. But certainly, I mean, the Benny Papists here in the U.S. distanced themselves from Vignolo. I think Patrick Coffin did, Ann Barnhart did, and the others. So no one was supporting him over in the U.S., that I could tell. And it sounds like, I know Don Munatello and Andrea Cianci did not support him. So I'm not suggesting that. I am suggesting it's a metaphor in the sense that it shows that the Benny Papists are really in a corner. Vignolo's solution doesn't work, but what do they do? What do they do next? And that's the problem. What conclave can they appeal to? And I think
that indeed is something that also myself are trying to understand. So what next? That I can say, because until there was Benedict XVI, of course, they have their own objective to, of course, continue to say that Benedict XVI still was a pope, blah, blah. But now that Benedict XVI is dead, so what is the way forward from their theory? Because I don't know if they can say, oh, we will remain for forever without a pope, because as you say, and as we all know, the cardinal appointed by Benedict XVI will never do a conclave to elect a new pope against Pope Francis, regardless of the opinion of some of them about the Pope, but everyone recognizes that he is the Pope.
correct.
So that is something really that we should observe, and probably we should do another video in a few months and see what will be the situation at the time.
Exactly. Yeah, it's. I think, unfortunately, like I said, they backed themselves into a corner, and they have to choose really between Sedevacantism, I think, is what is looming out there for them long term, or they have to back down. And because right now, some of them are so dogmatic in saying, Francis is an anti-pope and Benedict was definitely the pope. If they had only backed down and said, well, maybe we're not sure, then they could have left themselves the option for a council or for a future pope to clarify things. But they have closed the door on that by being so dogmatic in saying that Benedict was pope and Francis was an anti-pope. So I don't see how they get out of it without, showing some humility and admitting they were wrong. And that, I think, for some of them is going to be hard to do.
Yes. And so I just want to ask you as my last question. You are following this kind of movement. Do you think that you will continue to follow their moves, or you think that you will move to something else?
No, I've kind of invested myself in following the movement. I didn't intend for it to happen, but it just kind of happened. I started following the movement back in 2017. If you look back at my blog, I had a lot of questions about Francis, as we talked about. So I looked very closely at the Conclave, and I wrote a series of articles on problems with the Conclave. So when I first saw the Benedict theory, I was interested. I didn't. I went, oh, let me look into that. But as soon as I started reading it, I saw they were misinterpreting like the last audience of Benedict. They just clearly.
By the way, sorry if I interrupt you, because I think we have to mention this, because if we don't mention, and then people will see the video, they will say, "Oh, they don't talk about this," because I know that some of the people in this movement accuse you that you have some kind of ulterior motives because you work before in the CIA, and so personally I don't see well the contact, well, what is the connection between the thing that you criticize the movement and then you work before the CIA. I don't certainly the CIA has an interest in the Vatican. That is sure, as every country in the world. But so you want also maybe to say something about this?
Oh yeah, yeah. I am. I was a former employee. Myself, my blog. We received no money, no direction from anybody, anywhere. What we write, what interests us, that's totally our own. We are fully responsible for what is written. So no, I am. These are my opinions. My views of Benevacantism or Benepapism. No one is suggesting any topic to me. No one suggests anything to me. I just write it.
Okay, so I want to thank Steven for this almost improvised video streaming, but I think it was important and interesting to talk about this in the day that commemorated the 10 years of Pope Benedict's resignation. I remember, I want to remind our viewers about the book of Stephen that is valid, the resignations of Pope Benedict XVI. And I want also to remind them about the book I wrote with Aldo Maria Valli, Uprooted, that is available in English, in paperback, and in ebook. So thank you very much again, and I hope to see our viewers in our next videos. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.